To start, we'll talk about some best practices. So some of the best practices for before, during, and after. So Yauhan, did you want to start with some of the best practices for before?
Yeah, maybe Sarah, you start while I do this post
Okay.
and then I can
Yep.
chime in. Yeah.
Sounds good. I think thanks, Mel. I think some of the best practices that you can use for before an interview is preparing for said interview. Uh, if I were to break it down to like a few key things, if you only had like 30 minutes because you got the request for the night before, you need to research yourself again. So reread the resume that you submitted and the cover letter, because if there's inconsistencies between what you say and what the resume says, it's a red flag. And we don't want any red flags. I want you to think about how you would answer your tell me about yourself, and then thinking about your biggest wins, the top 3 to 5 accomplishments you've had in your career, and what skills you have demonstrated in those accomplishments. And then research the company. Because if you answer that, why do you want to work here? Or why did you apply here poorly? It's an instant no. Like, let me tell you, like, it's almost impossible, very hard to come back from a poor answer on that one. So research the company to figure out why you do actually want to work there. And don't just drop stats or something like headlines that you maybe read. Give an actual reason why. So that's my key best practices for before. Did I miss anything?
No, I think those were all excellent best practices. I would say, just to add on to that, for me, the most important step before any interview is mindset, right? So getting into the right mindset where you feel and you actually believe that you are the best candidate for this role. So think about this. Why have you been called for the interview? You've been called for the interview because they believe that there is something in you, there's some potential in you, and they actually see you working at that organization, right? So just the fact that you got an interview should give you a lot of confidence that you are the ideal candidate for this role. So you should go in with that mindset, a mindset filled with confidence, a mindset filled with clarity, as opposed to self-doubt. So convert that self-doubt into self-belief as soon as you get the interview. The second point I would like to say is what Sarah said as well, is preparation, right? And part of the preparation is a lot of research. I would recommend researching three things. One, about the company, right? And why is it that you want to work over there? The second, about the role, and why is it that you're interested in this role, and what makes you the best fit for the role? So those are two questions that always come up in the first round of interviews. And the third thing is researching about the interviewers, right? You want to connect with the interviewers on a human level.
Mm-hmm.
This is not some sort of an integration where they are bombarding you with questions and you're just sitting back and answering. So it's a two-way conversation. It's a two-way communication where they ask you questions. You can pause and you can ask them questions as well. So prepare your mindset for that. And then the third thing I would say is study the job description inside out. A lot of the questions that will be asked in the different rounds of the interviews can be almost guessed if you look at the job posting and the job description. So I would say prepare accordingly based on what you see on the JD. So yeah, I have posted about the event, Sarah. So hopefully now more and more people join, and I see already there are 30 people
Yeah.
live. So which
So
is amazing. I
let
would,
us know you're here by clicking the like button, telling us where you're watching from, and then
yeah.
answering your questions. We'd love to hear that.
You,
And
you just read my mind. I was just going to tell people, like, where are you tuning in from?
yeah,
Tell us what is your profession, right? And share your LinkedIn profile as well, so that way other people can connect with you. So I see Melvinder has joined. Thank you, Mel, for joining. I see my good friend Neha Sharma has joined as well. Thanks, Neha, for joining and sharing your LinkedIn. Who else do we have? There's
yeah.
30 of you, so I'm sure there's a few more.
I'm seeing some likes. I'm seeing some likes. Thank you for doing
Amazing.
that. And don't forget, so if you have any questions that are popping up as we're talking, let us know in the comments so that we can address them. And now let's get into some of the best practices from Portugal. Paulo, that's amazing. Let's get into some best practices for during the process. So on that mindset note, for me, one of the key things when we're thinking about going into a series of interviews, because prepare yourself, you will be going through a series. The numbers are all over the place, but anywhere from 3 to 6 interviews or steps. And like there could be tests or assessments as part of that. But too many times we go into the interview feeling like we need them to see that we can do the job. Like we need to convince them that we can do the job. And I would like just a tiny little shift where you're going in, showing them that you can do the job, that you want the job. Because when you come from that perspective, it is so much more confident and comfortable, and you get a little bit out of your head and into the moment. And that is something I really want you to focus on during the whole interview process is stop trying to come up with the perfect answer, because you're not going to be able to come up with the perfect answer. Like there's no such thing. But what I want you to focus on is creating a connection with the person interviewing you, because that connection is the key. Like if they like you, they put on rose-colored glasses, and then everything you say becomes so much shinier and nicer, and you become much more memorable. I know from my 10,000 interviews that I conducted, I hired lots of people who did not do really good in the interview. Their questions were not perfect. They were rambly, they were a little all over the place, but they connected with me, which allowed me to see who they are as a person instead of as an interview answer. And also when that happens, a hiring manager, when they're thinking about all of the 10 people that they potentially interviewed, they remember the people they connected with. They don't remember those perfect answers. So I know we get very wrapped up in how to create the perfect answer. And that's why there's all these acronyms out there. You choose the one that works for you because you do want to tell a story because that's more memorable, but really focus on those interviewers. And like, honestly, this is like a 5-hour training. So I'm not going to out and I'm going to pass it on to you because there's too many details about the jury.
Yeah, so before I get to sharing some of my insights over here, I want to say hello to a few people who have joined. So Paolo, thank you so much for joining from Portugal. It's one of the countries on my bucket list. So I'm going to connect with you for sure after this. Mel from Scarborough, thanks Mel again for joining. We have Mayoko from Brampton. You attended one of my recent sessions, Mayoko, so the name is very, very familiar. Simone, thank you so much for joining. Aurelia, thank you for joining. We've got a LinkedIn user. I'm not sure
So, yeah, I don't know who that is. Yeah.
who that is. Yeah, Disha, thanks for joining. Disha actually has a question. So
Okay.
Disha, we will get to your questions. I'll just share a few tips and then we'll get to your
Mm-hmm.
question right after. Carolyn, thanks so much for joining, Carolyn. David, oh, David is a really, really dear friend of mine. And as he
Amazing.
says, we've done a few collaborations with students. David, so thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Vanilla, thank you so much, Vanilla, for joining from GTA. All right, perfect. So just to add to what Sarah said, so once you get into the interview, your resume is garbage after that. So no one really cares about, the format or the content of your resume. Okay, so keep that in mind. What they care about is about the words that come out of your mouth,
Mm-hmm.
right? So no longer are they judging you now by a piece of paper that you wrote, which is, your resume. They're judging you for the articulation of your thoughts, right? And whether those thoughts make sense for them. So the interview is not about what you say, the interview is about what you show, and the interview is about what they want to hear, right? So it's not so much about you, but it's about them, their challenges, their problems, and if you are the best suited candidate for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, they know you can do the job, right? Because they have, screened you through your resume. So they know it's not that whether or not you're qualified for the job, it's whether or not you are the best candidate for it. And typically it starts with first impressions. So So I would say, the first thing I would do and I would focus on is creating that really strong first impression. So let's say you get into an interview and they say, Sarah, how are you doing today? Most people will say, I'm doing well. How about yourself? Right? That's the typical response. I want you to be memorable amongst, the 5 or 10 other people they're interviewing. How do you become memorable? You start by saying something that's different, that will make people remember you. So you can say, I woke up early this morning like how I always do. I finished my meditation. I went for a quick jog around the block, had a protein smoothie, and here I am excited to talk to you, right? Or whatever your morning routine is, right? Say something that they can remember on a personal level, and that again will help you form that connection. Whether they do meditation, whether they go for a jog around the block, whether they drop their kids, whether they are into, having protein shakes in the morning, whatever that is, you'll find some point of connection over there. This,
Just to,
yeah.
just to, you can also say, if you're really nervous, you can also say, I'm really nervous because I really want this job, or I haven't interviewed in a few years. Like, that is also another way to be memorable, and also excuses rambling and nervous behavior. This coming from someone who was very nervous interviewing. That's another way to stand out, is to be vulnerable and honest if you are a nervous type of person. That's right.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because at the end of the day, interviewing is a skill. Nobody is born naturally to be a good interviewer, irrespective of how strong of a command you have over the English language or how strong your communication skills are. Right? We all have to prepare and practice, and which is my second point. Right? You never want to go into an interview where you're not prepared, where you're not, haven't done your practice, because it's a skill. So any skill requires time to get good at that skill. So definitely do your preparation and practice. I would say, prepare for, in the first round especially, prepare for them to share something about the role and the company. Okay, so most first round screening rounds begin by them telling you something about the role and telling you something about the company. And this is the perfect opportunity for you to take down notes, right? Because whatever they say in those, few minutes about the role and company is exactly what you are expected to say when they ask you about the role and company, right? So if they say in this role they're looking for someone who thinks outside the box, who collaborates with other teams, who is innovative or creative in the way they approach things. When they ask you, why are you the best fit for this role, or what are your strengths, those are the things they're expecting to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When they tell you about the company, that our company is, we hate working in silos. We are like a family. We collaborate. We also do a lot of work in the community by giving back. Guess what? You want to replicate that in your answer. So I always say the first interview round, it's more about you listening, really grasping what they're saying, taking down notes. And you can absolutely tell them that, as you speak, don't mind, I'll be looking down because I'm taking down some notes, right? And then just reiterate those points back to them. And trust me, I have seen this tip work time and again. So that's one tip for you to prepare for during the interviews. And then the final thing I will say is, especially in the first round, prepare for the most common types of interview questions. So these are my top 5. Number 1, tell me about yourself. And if you guys need, how do I approach the tell me about yourself or any of the other questions, happy to spend some time doing that as well. But number 1, tell me about yourself, or walk me through your resume, or tell me something that I don't see on your resume, right? That's typically the first question. The second question is about the role. So why are you interested in this role, which is more of a motivation question, or why are you the best fit for this role, which basically is how do your skills and experience align with the qualifications. The third question will be about the organization. So what made you apply for our company? Or why are you so interested in working for this company? And as Sarah said over here, you want to avoid the cliche answers. And when I say the cliche answers, I mean, oh, I looked at your company website and your mission and vision really stood out to me, right? I mean, you want to go a little bit deeper than that. You want to talk about their values and how their values align with yours. You want to talk about their goals and their aspiration and how that aligns with your goals and what you're looking for in your next role. right? There's always going to be, either in the first or second round these days, a question on salary expectations. So you want to be prepared for that question. You want to have done your research on that question. And then they'll ask you, what questions do you have for us? Right? And you always, again, want to be prepared with one or two questions to ask them towards the end. Some of the other questions that come up: tell me about your strengths and weaknesses, right? So sometimes that comes up. Tell me about a recent accomplishment that you've had. Okay, so you always want to be ready with three or four accomplishments. And another common one is tell me about a recent challenging situation. So how did you overcome that? Or tell me about a time when things did not go your way. How did you overcome that? So I hope that was helpful in preparation. So